One of the most contentious, most frequently debated aspects of the health reform fight can finally be resolved tonight. It's the issue of bipartisanship. Earlier this month, Republican Senator Olympia Snowe supported one Senate committee's version of health reform.
Is this bill all that I would want? Far from it. Is it all that it can be? No. But when history calls, history calls.
The history call there that Senator Snowe was talking about was her vote on the Finance Committee bill. Now, the Finance Committee bill didn't include the public option. She voted yes on the most conservative of all the health reform proposals, the only one without a public option. And at the time of that vote, the senator made no promises that she would cross the aisle again to vote for reform once it reached the full Senate floor.
My vote today is my vote today. It doesn't forecast what my vote will be tomorrow.
Well, despite her apparently reluctant vote for the weak bill in the Finance Committee and her waffly valedictory afterward, Beltway Common Wisdom decreed that bipartisanship was back because of that one vote. And the senior senator from the nation's 40th most populous state was crowned the most powerful woman in Washington. Well, today a wrecking ball slammed into that Beltway Common Wisdom when Brian Butler at Talking Points Memo broke the news that not only does Senator Snowe say she will not vote for any kind of public option whatsoever, opt-in, opt-out, trigger, or whatever, she will almost certainly vote to filibuster a bill that does have a public option. Quote, I've said I'm against a public option. Yes, it would be difficult to support allowing the bill to proceed to a vote. Okay, then, this is all clear now. We're down to one central question. Will health reform require a simple majority to pass, or will it require 60 votes, 50 votes, or 60 votes? That is the single question that it seems will most determine what we get for health reform as a country. If it's a 50-vote margin, progressives will likely be very happy with the health reform outcome. If it's a 60-vote margin, meh. Which it is depends on the Democrats alone. The Republicans cannot force a 60-vote threshold without at least one Democrat helping them do it. Three likely Democratic suspects for helping the Republicans with this include, of course, Joe Lieberman of Connecticut, Mark Pryor of Arkansas, Mary Landrieu of Louisiana. And even though Lieberman and Pryor and Landrieu say they do not support a public option and won't vote for it, they have all recently indicated that they will not go with Olympia Snowe and the Republicans to block a vote on it and force a 60-vote threshold. They will allow the bill to go to the floor. And that takes the mantle of most perceived power in the Senate for the moment out of Senator Snowe's hands and actually puts it into the hands of the other conservatives, people like Ben Nelson and Blanche Lincoln. If Senator Nelson or Senator Lincoln decided to allow a vote on health reform, they decided that it would be a 50-vote margin rather than a 60-vote margin, health reform and a strong health reform bill has a great chance of passing. If they join Republicans to block the vote, if they join Republicans to make it a 60-vote threshold, then we're in different territory. Joining us now is former Vermont Governor and DNC Chair, Dr. Howard Dean. Governor Dean, thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, Senator Arlen Specter on the Ed Show on MSNBC today said he thinks Democrats have 60 votes to invoke cloture without Senator Snowe. If that's true, is real reform a done deal?
Well, look, nothing is ever a done deal until the final vote, but I think that's true. You know, there's a long history in legislative bodies, and the Senate and the House in Washington are one of them, that you can vote any way you want, of course, on a substantive issue, but you've got to vote with the leader of your party on a procedural issue. That is, if you're in a caucus and you owe your position of your chairmanship or your ranking member, whatever it is, to the leader, and to the party, then you owe the party not a vote on an issue. That's your own business and your constituents' business, but you owe the party and the leadership the ability to run the chamber. And that is why I think that there will be 60 votes, and I think Senator Reid will do the best he can to get it, and I think he'll get them.
Why do you think there's been so much talk of the inevitability of a Republican filibuster on health reform and so little discussion about the fact that a Democrat would have to make it happen? Republicans really can't do this alone, but although we've tried to stress that on this show, it doesn't seem to be the main narrative about the way people are talking about how this gets done.
You know, it's interesting, Rachel. This thing is not going the way the Republicans would like it to. The Republican obstructionism has really gotten to be a problem. An increasing number since August of people support a public option. There was a poll in Washington the Washington Post ABC that came out, which was just stunning, which showed that 51% of all Americans would prefer a solution without any Republicans as long as it had a public option. Now, that is an unbelievable change in position since August. And I think, the Senate ultimately is going to respond to what their constituents want.
You and I have talked in the past about the strategy for the final vote and who's going to be put on the spot. If it's a very progressive bill, then conservative Democrats will be facing the choice of whether or not to vote no on health reform in order to seem conservative. If it's a conservative bill, then liberal Democrats will have to decide whether or not they're going to vote no on health reform in order to seem liberal. Which do you think is a better strategic bet for Harry Reid?
I think we should stop talking about liberal and conservative. What this is about is whether the American people get to make choices or whether politicians and bureaucrats and insurance companies are going to make the choices. And the reform here is not in what the House and the Senate do, it's in what they let us do. If we get an option, then the American people will decide whether they want to reform health care or not by whether they choose the public option or not. If we don't have any choice, then I think it's going to be a big problem, because what we really want is choice. This is not a debate about whether the public option is better than insurance companies. It's whether we get to make that choice for our families and our kids, or whether other people get to make that choice.
Former Vermont Governor and DNC Chair Howard Dean, very ably dodging my strategic question there, but giving us a great answer nonetheless. Hats off to you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Rachel.